Welcome to the Stop Overdrinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 278, Mental Health Awareness Month and Alcohol Use. Well, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I love this because I think more recently, mental health has been highlighted. And, we see all sorts of different therapeutic options, coaching, therapy, online help, in-person help. We are talking about mental health more, and there are more resources, although I do understand and know that finding somebody to talk to privately, a therapist or a counselor or something like that, can be challenging. However, it's good because we are talking about it more and we're reducing the stigma around mental health. You can look really good on the outside, and I think this is where it can get dangerous too. I've talked about this with my clients on the podcast. Like, my clients are, very high achieving. They look great. They're functional. They go to work. They take care of their families. But on the inside, they can feel like a hot mess, and they have big feelings they don't know how to deal with. And then they end up drinking, and they can stay that way for a long time, which is very dangerous because, as you know, when we drink, it kind of creeps. And it can, over time, increase quite significantly. And then we wake up 20 years later and we're like, holy shit, I'm drinking a bottle and a half of wine every night, right? So over drinking and mental health are very closely intertwined, and alcohol consumption often makes mental health issues worse. So a lot of drinking or excessive drinking or over drinking can increase the risk of developing conditions such as depression, anxiety, or other substance use disorders. And then people with pre-existing mental health challenges such as anxiety or depression often turn to alcohol to cope. So that leads to a very harmful cycle of self-medication, and it makes their symptoms worse. I talk about this on the podcast a lot, like the anxiety. I used to have very high levels of anxiety. And when I would drink, it was like throwing gasoline on the fire, because I would drink, it would take the edge off for a little bit that night, but then the next day it exacerbated my anxiety. Like, I overthought all of things, right? I second guessed myself a lot. I questioned things. I kept running lists in my head all the time. And that's because I drank, right? And then I didn't deal with my stuff. I didn't deal with the underlying issue of the anxiety. And then I drank alcohol, and it just makes you think about things in a worse way. And once I stopped drinking, I barely have any anxiety now. And I learned how to manage my mind, right? There's more tools than just stopping drinking. I learned how to feel my feelings. I learned how to take care of my mind and how to have good mental health, and how I actually have a lot of control in that. So when we look at addressing over drinking and mental health, it's important to take it from the bigger picture, right? So like exactly what I just said, and making sure you're looking at how much you're drinking and what does your mental health look like, right? Are you taking care of yourself? Do you have good coping skills? Are you finding alternative ways to relax, to take the edge off? All of that kind of stuff. It needs to be a holistic, coming at it from all different angles approach, and so that you can improve your mental health, okay? And so my mission here with the podcast, with all of the work I do, is because I had that, I used to overdrink, and I know what that feels like to have high anxiety and a lot of overwhelm and bouts of depression, and then using alcohol to cope, and food. And I have solved that for myself now, and I have very good mental health habits. And, I haven't drank in almost 6 years this summer, and I've coached hundreds, if not thousands, of women on this issue. And I'm very passionate about it because there's things that you can do to help yourself. So if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know, right, how some of the tools that I teach, and how feelings are so important, and looking to different ways to finding joy. But I'm very passionate about this because I know the difference of not having great mental health and drinking, and and now having good mental health and not drinking. Like, it's a phenomenal shift and it fires me up to keep going every single day to help other women mostly feel the way that I do now. And I'm not saying that I don't struggle ever and that I don't get bouts of depression or get overwhelmed or any of that. I still get that, which is normal. You're not supposed to be happy all the time. That's not a realistic expectation. But how do you deal with it when you're feeling down? How do you deal with it when you've had a bad day? That's what we're talking about here. So, over drinking is, the way I define it is if you are drinking more than you want to drink. And that's as simple as you need to think about it. If you don't want to be drinking one glass of wine every night and you're finding that very hard to give up, then that's over drinking for you. If you are drinking a bottle and a half of wine every night and you find that very difficult to give up, that's over drinking for you. If you're just binging on the weekends, you don't have an issue with drinking during the week, but come the weekend, it's all out, and your weekends get ruined because you're hungover most of the time. That's what over drinking is for you. So it's very personal. And it has different impacts on our mental health and our physical health. And so when we look at what's going on for us individually, we have to evaluate our relationship with alcohol and how we feel on a regular basis. So if you are somebody that is very anxious or gets depressed or has had big traumatic events in your life, so maybe somebody died or you went through a very difficult divorce, or there was a significant illness like cancer or something like that, or you were abused, and you find yourself drinking from that, right? You started drinking when the initial traumatic event happened, and then you find yourself, even though that traumatic event is over now, you find yourself still drinking to deal with how you feel, right? That is something to explore. So you want to look at your own relationship with alcohol and some of these bigger feelings that you may experience on a regular basis. And so it's normal. The human brain is conditioned to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So it's normal why you might want to turn to alcohol to cope. Okay. It's easily accessible. Oftentimes it's a cheap fix, even though you can buy very expensive bottles of wine and liquors and things. You can go to the store and buy something for $10-20 and you take the edge off, right? So it's more affordable, it's more readily accessible. There isn't a lot of limitations on it if you're 21 and over. And it's legal. So there's no laws against it, right? So it's very accessible, and the human condition is one that we are programmed to seek pleasure and avoid pain and save energy. So alcohol is this readily available substance to us. And when we have this human condition, it's called the motivational triad, running all the time. And if you're feeling anxious or depressed or dealing with some big traumatic event and you haven't really dealt with that yet, it makes sense why people turn to alcohol as a coping mechanism. Okay. And it depends on a lot of different things I've discussed in the podcast, like your social network and your family history and how normalized it was to drink, and, how you have fun, and the social activities that you do. So if you're involved in a community or a network of people that drink a lot, and you're struggling with some of these mental health things, it's hard to cut back because that's always just there. And it's, sort of what you're seeped into on a regular basis. Okay. When I talk about understanding mental health and over drinking, it's important to know why we overdrink. Okay. I talk about this a lot. It's because we want to feel something that we currently don't feel, or we're trying to amplify a feeling. So when I'm talking about mental health in this podcast episode, usually you're drinking because you don't want to feel something. You don't want to feel bored. You don't want to feel anxious. You don't want to feel overwhelmed. You don't want to feel angry. You don't want to feel sad. Those are the very common ones, like the negative type feelings that people don't want to be with. And when you drink from that place, you train your brain that you need that to cope. And so then over time, your amount of alcohol that you drink increases because you need a lot more of the substance to get to the desired effect that you're after. And then you can become reliant on it. And it's not like a physical reliance, it's just like a mental reliance. And you don't know how to cope with those bigger type emotions. And so you grab the quickest and easiest thing that you can find. Okay. If you recognize any of that, if you are drinking more than you want to, and you recognize that you have some of these bigger emotions that you don't know how to deal with, you haven't been able to find healthy alternatives, it's time for you to get some help. Okay, we've got to break the stigma around this and ask for help because, like I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast, mental health can be very silent, and you can look like you have all of your things together, and people aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, you need mental health support if you're drinking most of the time, because the people that I'm talking to in this podcast are people that are still functioning. I'm a certified life coach. I help you get to the underlying issues and help with those symptoms of needing that drink. But I'm not a clinical doctor. I'm not, in a clinical setting. And so most of the people coming to me aren't at that point of not functioning, their life is falling apart, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. We're more in the middle. They call that the gray area drinking. Okay. And you can take a few days off, but over time, it's hard for you to make any long lasting changes. And if that's you, you just need to get some help. Okay. Then there's nothing to be ashamed about that. So either, hire me as a private coach, come to one of my retreats and deep dive coaching programs, join a live AF. But getting help for this is very, very important, especially if you've been trying to do this on your own. I cannot stress that enough. You deserve to feel better. And maybe coaching isn't the right avenue for you. Maybe I'm not the right avenue for you. But I'm going to put some links in the podcast notes too of alternative ways to seek help for alcohol use disorder in the show notes, so you can explore options if you want to. But you need to get to the root of the issue. It's not just about taking a break and focusing on just not drinking. It's more than that. It's about establishing good, healthy routines, learning how to take care of yourself, giving yourself more time, stopping overworking, learning how to feel your feelings, understanding how to manage your mind, looking at any judgments you have around your feelings, right? Some of the most painful sort of mental health things that you can do is, if you are feeling depressed or anxious or whatever some of those bigger feelings are, and you think, why do I feel this way? I have nothing to be depressed about. Everything is good. I have a good job, good husband, good kids, all these things, beautiful home. I should not be feeling this way. Whenever you have a judgment like that about how you are feeling, that's actually very, very painful. And you can change the way that you think about how you're feeling. And I would start there, is looking at your judgments, and learning how to manage your mind is so, so important. Everything is created in your head, right? The mental health. It's created in your mind and how you feel. And the outside people can't see that. Only you know what's going on in there, right? And so if you are struggling, you got to ask for some help sometimes, because it's hard to navigate that in our own minds and dissect it and look at it and try to understand it when we're dealing with some of these bigger type feelings and mental health issues. Okay, it's hard to do that on your own when you're struggling, because your brain is primed to think negatively, and that's regardless if you have a mental health disorder or not. You're primed to think negatively, and it's really hard to dissect your own issues often, especially if you're over drinking a lot on top of it. So get support when you can. Reach out to me. I'm sure there's an option that we can work together. And then you got to start working on strategies on finding balance for yourself. So check out, go back and listen to podcasts about how to process your feelings. Develop a really good self-care routine, healthy coping mechanisms, having support, right? Having people that you can talk to, friendships, a network who might be experiencing similar challenges. I can't stress the importance of community. Inside Alive AF, we have a beautiful community of women all working on this stuff and learning how to feel their feelings and sharing what's the real stuff that's going on in their lives that are challenging for them without being judged. So those are the things that you need to work on. And it does take work. It takes a regular dedication to your life. Your mental health is the most important thing you should be paying attention to because it drives and creates your feelings, your thoughts, and your behaviors. And that's literally your life, how you think about things, right? How you feel about things, and then what you do, the actions or behaviors that you do in response to how you're thinking and feeling. It should be evaluated. You can clean it up if it's not where you want it to be and establish more healthy, sustainable routines to taking care of yourself instead of just, going and pouring a glass of wine or four, right? And if you're here and you're resonating with this, you're like, yes, yes, yes. It's never just a glass. If it was just a glass, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, right? And it's not just alcohol. There's other behaviors that we do in response to our mental health, like over shopping, overworking, overeating, could be cigarette smoking, it could be smoking marijuana, edibles, all of that kind of stuff too, any kind of drug. Avoiding things. So if you're over consuming stuff like that, overworking, if you're hiding, if you're not going out into seeing people, having, healthy relationships, those are all signs that you want to be aware of and get the help that you need. All right, my friends. So more on mental health awareness in another podcast episode, but I just wanted to talk about that now because of the highlighting around the importance of looking at your mental health and not judging yourself if you are struggling, getting the help that you need, and finding different ways to cope. I promise alcohol is not going to help anything. If you are struggling with any of those big emotions and you're drinking, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. So at some point, you're going to have to do the work and figure this out. And it's probably going to take getting some help, some professional help. So I would love to be that person for you. All right, my friends, we will come back next week with more. Have a good week. Bye for now. I want you to check out angelamascenik.com/aliveaf. You know what it's like to have a desire to cut back on your drinking, right? You start to read books, listen to podcasts, try things, but you might not be able to yet put all the pieces and suggestions together in a way that actually makes sense and works for you. You might struggle with beating yourself up after an overdrink. You might get frustrated with yourself when you take 2 steps forward and then another 2 steps back, and get overwhelmed with what's right and wrong about your relationship with alcohol. Your friends tell you that you should be able to have just 1 drink, and it isn't a big deal. You might be white-knuckling through urges and resisting instead of peacefully processing them. And you might struggle with your identity as someone who has enjoyed having a lot of wine or alcohol in your life. It's around you all the time. It's what you do and who you are. Well, after 5 years of successfully coaching hundreds of women through these struggles, I have created the Alive AF membership, where women like you can learn the basics on what it takes to cut back and reach your goals with alcohol, whether it is to just drink less or totally quit. And when you join, you will get the exact framework I used to change my own relationship with alcohol and still use today, that has led me to be alcohol-free for over 5 years. You're going to get access to my resources, videos, and worksheets that have been proven to change and reduce how much you drink. Every day you can ask questions, share your obstacles, and get coaching and direct support on the challenges you will face with love and no judgment. Also, you will get immediate access to workshops like uncovering your alcohol identity and changing it, how to say no to things that don't support your new identity or life or goals, aka boundaries. A workshop called Creating Emotional Agency, and another one, How to Manage Your Mind to Succeed at Your Goals, and more. Every month we have a brand new workshop. These workshops are filled with step-by-step prompts and instruction to help you create the exact relationship with alcohol that is best for you. My mission and vision for Alive AF is to be a hub of support and resources for women to come and learn how to do what is best for them and becoming more alive in the process. When you join, you're going to learn how to take care of yourself better, how to feel good and become more alive and go after the life that you really want. I want this membership to be affordable and an easy solution where you can get all the help you need in one simple place whenever you need it. So no need to go read another book, find a new podcast, attend a free webinar, or go down the path of piecemealing it all together. Join Alive AF and have it all there in one place for you anytime you need it. So go to angelamascenik.com/AliveAF and enrollment is open right now. See you inside.